You're listening to a podcast from 702. 702.
The Naked Scientist.
Time for The Naked Scientist, 19 minutes to 3 o'clock. We are taking your calls on 011 883 0702 and the WhatsApp line 072 702 1702. All of your science-related questions. Now, Doctor, how are you doing? Happy Monday.
Yeah, happy Monday. I was just listening to you two there, and I was thinking, what was my earliest heartbreak? And I'm really struggling to think of one until I get to teenage years, and then it's all down to girls. It's always girls.
I'm going to guess that you got some science equation wrong and you were heartbroken.
No, that's just the point. And it's not until the girls kick into the formula in the teenage years that then I can remember some heartbreaks. But I think it's a reflection on the way our brains are created and wired, that we tend to remember nice things, and as we look back, we find it harder and harder to remember bad things, and we tend to see the good in even bad things. And I think it's part of the protective mechanism that our brains employ to keep us from falling into terrible depression, because if you kept with you all of the emotional baggage of all of the bad things that have happened, then I think there's a real danger we'd all sort of end up permanently depressed.
Yes.
And I think that the psychologists tell us that we do tend to filter our memories, and we tend to look back with rose-tinted spectacles. And therefore, there are very dramatic things that you know happened to you, but even when they happened, you tend to see them as a bit more muted than they were at the time. And I think that's a self-preservation thing, and that's why I think I'm struggling. Maybe I'm just pathologically happy, I don't know, or no one broke my heart enough. But I just the odd girl thing. But other than that, I've been pretty good. How about you?
No, I laugh at some of my early heartaches, because the perspective of, the 7-year-old girl versus the 37-year-old woman. Yes, I still distinctly remember exactly what that pain looks like, but now I can see the pain through wisdom and understanding, and a different perspective. But many of the listeners that shared their stories are still quite heartbroken about things that happened to them. So I do believe that there is much healing. And then there are people like yourselves who don't remember chunks of their memories. And psychologists say exactly that. It's your body's way of protecting you, because there's certain things that maybe you did not have capacity to remember and process, and they might come back unless you go digging to find, or they may not, and you continue to live life as you do.
Yeah, and I think that's very important, because if we continually live our lives through what we've done wrong, rather than learn from it, move on and make things better, life doesn't get better. And I say it's always perfectly acceptable as a human to make mistakes, because we are human. But what's not acceptable is not to learn from them. And so, yes, things have gone wrong, but you can usually see some good has come out of that change, or that thing that went wrong that taught you to do it better next time. So there's normally a positive to take away from most negatives in some respects. I've had some pretty horrible things happen to me, and I mean really horrible things happen to me, which I would never want to repeat or never want to wish on other people. But there are some good things that have come out of that. And so I can look back saying, well, I learned from that. I gained from that, and there will be better days tomorrow because of that. And horrible as it was, I'm glad I actually in some respects went through that, because I have more insight and more empathy for others who might find themselves in that position.
Definitely. So let's quickly go to the lines, and we've got Patrick in Germiston. Hi Patrick, how are you?
Hey guys.
Go ahead.
You've got the microwave background radiation that's been mapped out, and it's pretty like a blotchy sort of image. Apparently, it's baryon acoustic oscillation. I don't know if you know anything about that and how it works and what baryons are, and if those blotchiness, the little blotches are like shock waves. Is it part of the microwave background radiation?
So, Doctor, the baryon acoustics. Did you say acoustics?
Baryon acoustic oscillations.
Okay, cool. Doctor?
Hi, Patrick. What's being referred to here by Patrick when we say cosmic microwave background radiation is colloquially called the afterglow of the Big Bang. Because when we look into space, we can see signals coming to us, radiation, equally from all directions, which has been stretched out into the microwave. And this is light that was produced when the universe first formed. It's energy from the material that was around when the universe first formed and the Big Bang happened. But because the universe stretched out and inflated incredibly rapidly, all of the stuff that was there at the beginning shared all of the energy and was then spread out over a huge depth of space very, very fast. And then when we came along, we see the radiation, which is now stretched out because space is inflated. And so if you make the path over which the waves are transmitting get much, much bigger, the waves arrive much less frequently. And this has the effect of red shifting or stretching them out. And this is the afterglow or the echo that the Big Bang left behind. And we can read from that various things. And there are certain imprints left in that radiation, polarizations that can tell us a bit more about what the early universe that was the architect of that afterglow of the Big Bang looked like. Because one of the problems we have when reconstructing our past and the point when the universe appeared 13.8 billion years ago, this universe anyway, is that we can get back only so far before the traditional techniques of seeing things and seeing back in time with telescopes doesn't work anymore. So we have to have other ways of probing into that fog and looking at these various messages and imprints that are written into the structure of that cosmic microwave background radiation is one way to do that. And there are various projects which are looking at that, which will look at polarizations and how the particular waves are twisted in certain directions. And that's really where it's at the moment, because we can infer what the stuff that made those signals looked like and the material it interacted with to give it that particular imprint. And so that's what scientists are working on at the moment. I'm not familiar with what the other thing that was being referred to, but I'm very happy to take that away and have a look next time.
Thank you so much for that question. Let's go to Sfiso in Johannesburg South. Hi, Sfiso.
Hi, Relebogile and Dr. Chris Smith. Quick one. Why does a small child not know how to walk, like a 5-month-old? Is it a question of them having to learn how to balance and walk, or is it a question of their spine not being able to hold them up good enough so that they can be able to walk?
Sfiso, are you asking this because you watched a video of an elephant baby being born and walking immediately?
Yes, exactly.
I knew it.
Exactly.
I knew it.
So,
I knew it.
Yeah,
Doctor?
Well, you've hit the nail on the head, which is that it's different courses for different horses. Some animals are what we call really precocious. They're born with many of their faculties ready to go, and all they have to do is get bigger in order to turn into an adult. Whereas some species are born completely incapable, and if it weren't for a nurturing adult to look after them, they would perish. One of the things about humans is we have, as any woman who's given birth knows, a very big head. And we are born at a scale of development where if our head got any bigger, we would not get out into the world. So we're born at the limit of our development. If we stayed inside anymore to have other faculties wired up and our brain ready to go, we would not get out of our mums. So therefore, nature has a gamble. Nature says, well, I can give birth to a baby which is not quite ready to go, but the payoff is, the trade-off is, I know that mum and dad, because humans are social, kind, caring creatures, will take care of this baby until it is ready to go. Whereas other animals that are born to parents that care for them, love them in the way that animals do, but may not be as capable of bringing them up in the same way, they don't have that they don't have that ability to invest years of their life in rearing their young like humans do. And so the way it works for us is that we have babies where the things that we rely on the minute we're born, the ability to cry, eat, sleep, breathe, to make our mum and dad love us by staring at them, smiling, developing communication, those things are pre-wired and pre-formed, ready to go from the minute we're born into our brains. But other things that we can get away with not having to do quite yet, like walk around, use our hands and arms dexterously, and even know how to go to the toilet, we don't have to worry about that because someone else worries about all that and the consequences for us until we're a bit older. So it's that payoff. If we got any bigger and we invested more energy in our development and cooked ourselves inside mum for longer, there's a higher risk we would die on the way out. So that's what nature does to trade things up.
I literally thought, Doctor, you're going to say some species learn to walk immediately because they have to run from predators.
Well, they do. And
versus, for us, we're not necessarily out in the wild needing to run from predators the way a baby elephant would need to.
Well, we do need to run from predators, but our parents pick us up and carry us. And that's the difference. And an elephant wouldn't be able to do that in the same way. It has to sort of stand its ground and fight off things, doesn't it? But at the same time, you need a greater degree of independence. You need to get up on those four legs like a horse or a young buffalo calf, for example.
Yes. Okay, cool. Thank you so much, Fiso, for that question. Zweli in Randburg, go ahead.
Yes, thanks, guys. I just want to find out something. I picked up something this week, and one of my friends, four-legged friend, my dog, one of his paws, nails, are longer than the other. He's very energetic. He climbs, he barks at the wall, and so forth. So my question to you guys is that, are dogs also left-legged, right-legged as men, human beings being left-handed and right-handed? Thanks. I listen on the radio.
Zweli, did your dog high-five you with the left hand, the left paw, or the right? Okay, thanks, Zweli. Doctor?
Well, humans are pretty unusual in that 90% of us are right-handed, 10% are left-handed. And if you look across the population at large, you won't find any particular group of animals. You won't find any particular group of animals that have the same degree of or preponderance of handedness like we do for humans. And people have done the studies where they've looked at many different animals. There are a few exceptions. Kangaroos seem to have one particular hand preference across the population, but most animals don't. Now, that's not to say that they're not right or left-pawed or legged or finned, but it's equal numbers of the population are right and left-handed. And if we look at dogs, we find that about half of dogs prefer using their right paw, half of dogs prefer using their left paw. Same with horses, same with the majority of other animals, with the exception of, as I say, kangaroos and some birds. We don't know why humans are so exceptional in having one particular side that the vast majority of the population prefer. And people say it's because the left brain is dominant. And then you say, why is the left brain dominant? And they say that's because that's where the brain creates language. And then you say, well, why is that on the left then? And they say, well, I don't know. So we can't actually explain why this happens, but we know it's not a new thing. And if we look at cave paintings, way back from, say, 50,000 years ago, there's some lovely studies done by researchers at the University of Montpellier. And they've been to caves where people from 50, 60,000 years ago were doing hand imprints on the wall of their cave. You do this by holding one hand against the wall like a stencil, and the other hand holds a blowpipe and squirts some pigment at the wall. And people who are right-handed tend to use their dominant hand to hold the blowpipe and their non-dominant hand as the stencil. And if you go to children in a school and get them to do this, you get about the same ratio of right and left hands on the wall as you would in the cave paintings, showing that our ancestors had a similar hand preference 50 or 60,000 years ago, where 90% of them were probably right-handed. Why that is, why that came about, we have no idea. But other animals, including dogs, don't have that. But individual animals do prefer to use a right or a left hand.
Thank you so much for that question. Let's go to Peter in Randburg. Hi, Peter. Go ahead.
Hi, Relebogile. How are you?
Good, thanks. And you?
I'm good. Good afternoon, Dr. Chris.
Hi.
I just want to find out why sometimes do you remember what you dreamt about, and then sometimes you don't remember at all, especially the one with a lot of numbers.
I knew you were going to say that.
I'll listen on the radio for that one.
I literally was going to say Peter's panicked that he dreamt of numbers and now he can't recall them. So, Doctor, why is that the case?
Well, as we go through the night, it's not just an off switch being flicked when we go to sleep. We sink into a particular pattern of brain activity, and then periodically through the night that activity changes, and you go through cycles of very elevated brain activity and then depressed brain activity again. And when you're in those cycles of elevated brain activity, which become longer and more pronounced as the night goes on, you also see people describing rapid eye movements. And when we're describing rapid eye movements, your eyes flicking around behind your eyelids, that's when people are dreaming. So we know that people dream in bursts across the night. We also know that those bursts get longer across the night. And we also know from psychology studies that if you wake someone up when they are in those particular patterns of brain activity and eye movements and they're dreaming, they're more likely to be able to recall a dream. So therefore, the likely answer to this question is that people remember a dream if they wake up in the middle of it. That's more likely to happen as the night goes on, and therefore we tend to have the most colourful, memorable dreams towards the end of our sleep. And or in the middle of the night if we get woken up by a particularly nasty or distressing dream. But most of the time we remember dreams that happen towards the end of the night because that's when we're going to wake up naturally anyway. And because you're interrupting the dream process, it sometimes seeps into your consciousness as you come to, and you can remember some of it. But dreams involving numbers, whole lot of gobbledygook goes on. No one knows what the point of dreams is anyway. It may even be the brain ditching rubbish information, which is why dreams are not so memorable in the first place.
I see. All right. Thank you so much for that question. Let's go to Athena in Walkerville. Hi, Athena.
Hello.
Yes, go ahead, Athena.
My question is, I saw a video of someone cloning a dog just from their spit. So my question is, can you clone a person from just their spit sample?
Oh, so just a saliva sample, is that possible, doctor?
The way in which we do cloning is you take a cell, which is an adult cell, and you take the nucleus, which is the genetic information from that cell, and you put it into an egg cell that has been emptied of its own genetic material. And sometimes when you do this, and it's harder to do with more complicated animals like humans and easier to do with simpler animals like mice, you can reboot the genetic material in that egg and it will turn into stem cells and then into an embryo and then into a baby. Now, no one's done this that we know of with humans, although we know we can get the process to work, as in making a cloned human. But we know we can get the process to work, and people have done it with dogs. The way they made Dolly the cloned sheep, named famously after Dolly Parton, allegedly, and I spoke to Ian Wilmot, who made Dolly the sheep, and he confirmed that they did call Dolly the sheep after Dolly Parton, the singer.
You're going to have to tell us another day why.
from an udder cell, and that's why they named it Dolly the sheep.
Okay. So we shouldn't be excited that very soon we can clone ourselves.
I don't know whether we'll be cloning ourselves. I think there are enormous numbers of ethical reasons why that could be a problem. But in terms of the technology, it's not very efficient to do this yet. You have to do it a lot of times to get it to work once. I think it's not impossible you could use a spit sample to get the DNA out, but there are not as many healthy cells in there as if you've got, say, an udder cell like the cell used to make Dolly the sheep.
I have got you. Thank you so much, Dr. Chris Smith. We are back together. Oh, no, we're not back together next week, Monday. It's a public holiday, so I'll see you in 2 weeks' time, Doctor.
In a medical emergency, time is of the essence. So we'll get right to our point. Save 084-124 as a contact in your phone so that you can call ER24 immediately and our trained emergency medical technicians can react immediately.